He's a legendary television journalist who rose to national prominence as a correspondent for CBS News. Bill Kurtis has always had a unique perspective on the major stories of the day, including the one surrounding CBS News editor-in-chief Barry Weiss, when she pulled a planned 60 Minutes investigative segment focusing on allegations of abuse at an El Salvador detention center. Switch to today. You saw what happened with 60 Minutes, and Barry Weiss ends up pulling a piece from 60 Minutes. As you watch that unfold, what were your thoughts? What did you think? What was your reaction?
Terrible. Every reporter comes to tears because we knew, I hate to say we knew it was the end, but it could be the end of 60 Minutes.
Bill Kurtis and his views on that story and his reflections on a whirlwind career as he joins me up front from Chicago. And joining me now up front, one of the great news anchors of our time, broadcast journalist, producer, and author of the book Whirlwind. A pleasure to welcome Bill Kurtis. Hello, Bill.
Hello, Ross. Thanks very much.
Thank you. I've got to begin with the book. Why'd you write it?
Well, you may know back in 2004, Adam McKay, the movie director, and previous to that, Saturday Night Live writer, asked me to be the title character in Anchorman. Well, as news people, we don't do, movies. So my wife, Donna, and I kind of labored hard on that, but then said, what the heck? Read the script. It was so funny.
It was.
That we said, well, what could happen? And it's only 17 seconds or something like that. Well, as you know, it blew up. And it became this now, kids will look at it 13 times still. So after a while, there was so much activity, I said, I've been in the business 60 years before Anchorman. I'm afraid that it's going to be written on my tombstone, Anchorman, the movie. So I said, I'm just going to, sit down and see what I've got. Well, I had an awful lot. I had 2 volumes, actually. Just the first one is the one that's published, and it's worked out well.
It all begins for you in Kansas, and for the most part, and in law school. Take us back to that. Take us back to that time.
Well, I was a Kansas boy. My dad was in the Marines, but he settled down in Kansas, so I went to high school and law school in Topeka. Worked my way essentially while doing the weather on the one TV station in town and announcing. And but when it came time to graduate, June 8th, 1966, I said, what am I going to do? And I'd been thinking about it a long time. Do I practice law or stay in broadcasting? Broadcasting really wasn't matured to the point it is today. I mean, news, Edward R. Murrow was only back from the war for a few years. So the radio guys were really covering it. When it came to the civil rights movement and Vietnam, nobody had a manual. So the news people were out just doing what they could. So I said, I'm going to practice law, and I accepted a job at Wichita, a trial firm, and was all set. I was ready to go get I was studying for the bar, and a news director called me and said, hey, I'm going on vacation. Could you fill in for me? Sure, I'll go out, do the 6 o'clock news, 6 to 6:30. General manager comes down and says, we have some high winds. Maybe you should stick around. We took alerts, tornado alerts, very seriously in Kansas, because there's nothing to stop them between the wheat fields and, the city. So I stuck, and 7 o'clock comes around, and we had very well-known, not well-known, but a seasoned cameraman out. He said, I've got a tornado on the ground, southwest edge of the city. Mm-hmm. Spotters on the western edge, and got a few confirmations. But, we all think that it's going to bounce up and, dissipate. So 7 o'clock comes along. I'm standing on camera, and we get a minute into Lost in Space with Jim Forsyth. And general manager said, "We have a confirmation. Give the warning. Give the warning." Our whole lives have been caught up in, well, we'll tell you if it's going to be serious. We have nothing on the ground, et cetera,
Hmm.
thinking that it would never happen to us. Suddenly I'm looking into the camera and I have the responsibility to save lives. Got to get them into the basement. Have to convince them that what I said next was the real thing, not another warning that everybody takes for granted, then goes back to watching TV. Well, I thought about cussing, crying, shouting. I said, for God's sake, take cover, rather emotionally, and did the trick. And the shelters they go,
Hmm.
and we know shelters in Kansas. And it took 12 miles to rip open the capital of Kansas, 150,000 people, 17 dead there, but we would have lost an awful lot more. And the people who were watching pour in this their thanks. So I was convinced television can be a force for good. We can make a difference. And quit my job that I hadn't taken yet, um, grabbed my wife and 6-month-old daughter, who rode the tornado out in the basement of the science building. And when they came up, it was like, the crystal raindrops that, are hanging there when a storm goes through. The sky was clear, but or 6 out of 8 buildings on campus were in rubble
Oh,
on the ground.
God. Yeah.
So we head out, just like Dorothy did on The Wizard of Oz, from Kansas and a tornado. Um, and I had sent my tape around, and Channel 2, the CBS station in Chicago, picked it up and said, "Okay, can you get here?" As all the TV stations do. And we went with uh, a, a, a Rambler, the old like a U-Haul trailer, and arrive in Chicago, not even seeing the
My goodness.
lake. And I got a hotel or a motel. Imagine my surprise when I got up in the morning and couldn't see across this body of water. Well, anyway, for the next 4 years, I'll let you get in here. 4 years, it was probably the best under fire experience that any reporter could have had.
You
Richard,
went through it all. Democratic National Convention.
yeah,
Uh,
Richard
it,
Speck, mass murderer, was the first story I had. But having the law degree, passing the bar, gave me a real advantage.
how?
Well, I suddenly realized, well, first of all, none of the other reporters, hey, this is a big city. We had 4 newspapers in Chicago, but none of them were lawyers. And I looked at it and I said, this paralyzed the city. It was so terrible. 8 student nurses slaughtered. And so you got to get rid of the trial and change the venue. Okay, that was an easy one. But there were two landmark cases that nobody knows now, but had been handed down, not in the middle, but at the beginning of the trial. The Miranda, ever heard of that?
Hmm.
And nobody knew actually how to apply it. The cops, they're seeing it for the first time. The judges, they don't know. So we had to ask, well, did Speck get the Miranda rights? The answer was no, but they didn't care. They would hang him on the way from the jail to, if they could, to the trial. And the other is the Sam Shepard case, which was now landmark in disrupting trials because of pretrial publicity. I mean, and the Supreme Court just you know, let them have it. He said, that's a Roman circus down there. Of course we're going to
So
rewrite.
during that time, Bill, you're a reporter or are you anchoring as well?
I was a reporter. I came in, and it was my first real television news reporting. Now, I could write and had the law degree, and I had had 10 years in radio, little, jobs here and there. No, where I got most of my experience there, but no TV news hardcore. So I was learning as I was, and I walked in the door and they said, "Well, you have this big trial. You're going to cover it." Richard Speck.
Mm.
As you point out, then you have the King riots and the fires are burning Chicago and 100 other cities around the country. Then the Democratic Convention in 68, 10,000 demonstrators come in to disrupt the convention. Then you have the trial that followed that. And at the end of those 4 years, why CBS News said, why don't you come to work for us? Go to LA and, start your network job as a correspondent.
Did you like that?
Loved it.
Why?
Um, it was what I had chosen to do. And, a fireman looks for fires. They don't want anybody to be hurt. They want to fight fires.
And then,
Lawyer, it's the biggest cases they could get. A reporter
mhm.
wants a big story. You don't want ill for anyone, but you want a big. And I had four of the biggest stories in the country all jammed together. So, and it wasn't only law, it was the, riots in the city and learning on the job,
Mhm.
smartening it up. And, I don't play tennis or golf. I'm very dull and boring, but I love to work and I loved finding stories and telling those stories. So for 60 years, I was on my way and went to network and back to Channel 2 and
Well,
had my own production
there's
company.
a difference there. You went back to Channel 2 as an anchor, um, which is a lot different. You're more of a star there, less reporting. Uh, why did you like that more, or did you?
Well, no, I did. In 1973, we had two guys from CBS News, Bob Wessler and Van Gordon Sauter, who came in with the idea of changing local news. We
Hmm.
put news in local news. And so we started breaking stories on the street. They moved the anchor desk into the newsroom where you were really picking up all the energy of the assignment and desk going and the cops calling in and sending the crews out. I mean, it was really exciting. And we changed local news from that point. Everybody then wanted to have our success
And you would have a partner named Walter Jacobson. Eventually, did he come along right away, or how did that happen?
right away. And I was pulled out of it was 73, and I was pulled out of CBS News, where I
Hmm.
had covered the Benson trial out there. And I was told, well, you'll be the sole anchor, and Walter is going to be the commentator. And there was a precedent for that in Chicago. Well, they looked at us, and either they thought we're never going to make it with these two bozos, or they said, well, we have an idea. Why don't we co-anchor? And so, Walter, can you imagine throwing two guys together, never having worked together before? You say to the other guy, I think I need to read more stories than you. "Oh, I read enough stories, and that's it, that's how it goes. Well, it turned out to be the best job for that television
Hmm.
station and for our friendship. It's like a forced marriage, where, well, you're going to marry Bozo, and you better be happy because that's the way it's going to be. But he was the inside guy, spent 90 seconds on, I mean, finding stories, politics, and he owned that political reporting. I was the outside guy. I had been with CBS for three, and that was a wonderful. I loved that job, but they pulled me back to do the local anchor. They needed the going up.
But from the viewer's perspective, and I was one of them because I had come to Chicago during those days, Bill and Walter, Bill was the deliverer of the news, the Walter Cronkite, if you will, and Walter was the guy that cops and the administration loved to hate. Am I correct in that?
Oh yes, you're right. I mean, the worst phone call the politician could get would be Walter Jacobson on the line. Run.
So it was a real media marriage that was made in heaven, and it worked for quite some time, didn't it?
Long time, 9 straight years, and a couple 10 years in between.
Now, veteran of CBS, and you're mentioning all the folks in there, switch to today. You saw what happened with 60 Minutes, and uh, Barry Weiss ends up pulling a piece from 60 Minutes. Um, as you watch that unfold, what were your thoughts? What did you think? Uh, what was your reaction?
Terrible. Every reporter comes to tears because we knew, I hate to say we knew it was the end, but it could be the end of 60 Minutes. What has happened is that ownership, Paramount and Ellison, buys CBS. And in the contract with CBS News, they set up a bias monitor. Now, okay, that's the name of it. But in fact, what happened with Barry was she had 5 opportunities, Monday through Friday, to look at this piece coming out of Alligator Alcatraz. And it was tough. And and apparently, she had an opportunity, or they had an opportunity to call the administration and for, the
Hmm.
counter response and never called back. So they get ready to go on the air and she pulls it. She said, well, it needs more work. Really? What does that mean? Well, I have the numbers of Stephen Miller, if you want to talk to him. Hmm. Happens to be at the heart of the administration. Well, we would like to have had that earlier.
Hmm.
And it names a couple others, which tells you immediately that we now have a review process that goes directly to Donald Trump. It's the end of the line. The First Amendment, was written in.
Did you see this stuff coming when this CBS and Paramount was sold and the $15 million deal happened with Trump?
We had some leaks. We didn't see it this clearly. We hear bias monitor and immediately know, something's wrong. And that came from within. We're all reporters. What do you know?
Had you been a correspondent on 60 Minutes, and you could have easily, you had done other things within the network, and you were in the situation that Sharon Alfonsi was, who reported the story, what would you have done?
You have two choices. One, you can make a statement and leave. This is so bad, I'm going to choose another vocation or placement of a job. Well, one, you're kind of giving up. The other is to fight it within, do a good job. Now, we didn't not want a reply from the administration, even Trump. That would have been better. And others had done, the stuff of Alligator Alcatraz, the beating,
Hmm.
the torture. So the bigger story would have been to get the administration on the record. But it just, it was poorly handled by Barry, very poorly handled. And so I don't know ultimately of Alfonsi's, future plans, but she decided, at least for that story, to stay within and fight it within. No, you don't say we're going to fight it in a bad way. We're going to fight it by doing our jobs and making sure that we are right in terms of presenting an independent press for the benefit of the country. And that's what we are. That's why we got into the business. I was going to say, they wrote into the First Amendment well after the Constitution was written, something that appealed to Thomas Jefferson. He said, politicians don't like the media. I'm not the media, but the press. I don't. But if I had to have a country without a press, it doesn't work. Information, we are the watchdogs. Information about that give to the people who have the power of the Constitution. Where do they get their information? It's got to be the press. So we're going to write that in, freedom of the press.
Mhm.
We have a contract. That's what we do. I mean, we would be.
On the entertainment side, Jimmy Kimmel, same thread, really. Um, Censorship. We want him fired. What did you make of that whole experience?
I made of it corporate greed. They are giving in to leverage and pressure that the administration has made almost by insinuation. It told the head of the FCC, uh, you're going to re-examine the licenses of all the television stations that we own. Well, that's where they make their money. The network doesn't make money.
But the audience has power in this because that's how, in some instances, Jimmy got back. And I'm just thinking to myself, was the time you were anchoring in Chicago? I was a cub reporter there at WMAQ Radio, and I remember, I don't remember the name of the weatherman. You correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was at Channel Two. He was fired, and they brought him back. I don't remember his name, but I remember the promo that they brought him back with. He beat the bosses.
Yep. John
Um, who was that?
John Coughlin.
John Coughlin.
Yeah.
John Coughlin. He beat
Very
the
high
bosses.
standard. And there was such an uproar and the threat of losing audience that they rehired him and got more audience. Well, that's just an out and out business decision rather than the behind the back threatening unless you do what we say. Now, the corporation will say, hey, we have a right. Our right is to take him off the air, especially if nobody wants to see him. But they were wrong. MAGA doesn't control ABC.
And that isn't it interesting? After all those years, decades, same thread happened with Kimmel, and he beat the bosses too. The audience won out.
Yeah, he did. He did. We'll have to see how long it lasts at 60 Minutes. I
Now,
mean, Barry could come in and say, okay, let's settle this.
mhm,
And, I'm going to review. I'm going to play my role as president or a chief editor, I guess, of 60 Minutes. But you'll have a stake in it too. We'll talk it out or not.
what do you tell somebody getting out of college, masters of journalism, they're going into the business, and they really want to make a career of this? It's changed so much. What do you say to them?
Go into the business, one, we need you. You are contracted in by the Constitution, so you have a right to fight for it. Now, what you're going to have to do, unless things change, is every reporter will have to make his own decision and stand up. Stand up for what you think is right. And if you feel the ugly hand of censorship coming and wrong decisions that are being made, primarily for political reasons,
Mhm.
or just money making, then you're going to have to face the fact, and that fact is, are you going to leave, or what are you going to do? Now, there are larger questions at stake. It's not just come in and be prepared for a fight. We now have, if you want to stay in the news business, a lot of choices. When I came, there were basically three networks that had TV shows and an independent, WGN, and that was it.
Right.
So it's kind of easier to see. Now you have a lot of entertainment programs, you have 24-hour news, cable, look at cable. Netflix was probably going to start something, with streaming. And that whole thing is boiling. And they're going to have to, you know, if they want to own everything, as it appears to
Are
be.
we better for that?
I don't think so. Diversity is really the key. Um, we're okay with Fox. Fox, in my mind, gives half the news. They were programmed from Roger Ailes, and he said, "Hey, we're going to emphasize the president and Trump, and give that." Well, they did very, very well. They're the number one news on cable, um, and CNN chooses the kind of down the middle. The reason I like CNN is that they have the reporters out there. They cover beats. I mean, they talk to the newsmakers, especially in Congress, and that's what they cover. I mean, they have news.
I agree with you. The other two seem to have an agenda. Whatever that agenda is, they have an agenda. CNN does, to me, doesn't seem to have that agenda.
Well, the agenda is in news talk. You have to fill 24 hours a day, and you fill it by, and CNN does this too, the experts that you have for a roundtable.
Mm-hmm.
You discuss well, you're not discussing facts. Probably don't have facts 24 hours a day. But you'll have a judge. Saw a general this morning, and he gave a wonderful report on the Ukraine and the possible truce there and ceasefire. And you understand it more because you're getting the information of the background. And where would you put it anyway? Probably nowhere. But look at the podcasts. We have Netflix getting into podcasts. I mean,
Yeah.
that they're entering the fray. That has, I mean, there are something like 50 million. That was a couple of years ago, which challenged me. Well, wait a minute. What are we talking on right here? But a podcast.
If you had it to do over, would you have stuck with law? Much more steady, much more predictable. Would you have stuck with the law?
I would have been a good trial lawyer.
Do you regret not doing that?
No, no, not at all. As a matter of fact, I haven't had 2 seconds to regret it. To look around and say, geez, I wish I were practicing law. Look, I covered Speck, Charles Manson, Angela Davis, the conspiracy trial, major broadcasts. I walked in the first day as a junior correspondent at the West Coast Bureau in LA. And they said, well, our two senior guys are just sick of sitting in a trial for 10 months. Bill Stout had covered Sirhan, and so you're the new guy, and you happen to be a lawyer, so we're going to cover the trial. We weren't expecting much. You got a crazy story, but Bugliosi, the prosecutor, was going to really unveil it in detail. So I went to the first there in the Hall of Justice first and sat with 12 reporters. 3,000 members of the press covered the O.J. Simpson trial. So
I
nobody
remember.
expecting a lot. Well, we didn't have satellite trucks. We didn't have satellites up.
Right.
We had them up, but not refined to today. So I'm sitting there for the first witness, and the first witness was Linda Kasabian, beautiful young hippie girl. Came in with braids that came down, parted her face, and fell over her breasts. She was dressed in a little flower dress, exactly the kind that you would imagine as a hippie. And she starts in. And Bugliosi didn't have to do much except what happened. And she tells this story of, 4 people from the Manson, from a family who come up to Cielo Drive, climb through the back window
Mm-hmm.
of of the Sharon Tate house, walk past Sharon Tate's bedroom, who was 8 months pregnant. She was sitting in there knitting something for the baby. They go into the living room. And to make a long story short, they tie people up and disable them, uh, stab Sharon Tate 25 times, and kill the other with a knife primarily, and
When,
then dip the blood right on the walls, trying to make it look like the Black Panthers did it. Well, that that wasn't all in the first. She was on the stand for 12 days.
Jeez.
And suddenly I'm doing the Cronkite show, and they said, look, we planned on covering this for a day, but we can't let it go now. We're kind of in the middle of America's horror story.
Yeah.
It have to go to the end. And so I was on the air 12 straight days, which was crazy for a young junior reporter at the Bureau. So that was a big break.
Some of that carried over after you left the network area with your own production company because you did a lot of investigative crime types of stories, didn't
Well, again,
you?
1973,
Mm.
84, I went back from 82 to 85 and co-anchored the morning news with Diane Sawyer. But I got back, and around like 1988, one of the reasons I went back to Chicago is that I wanted to do documentaries. I did 3 CBS reports, but I, in order to do that, I said, I'm going to have to start my own company. But I was under contract to CBS as an anchor. At the same time, I was starting so I had basic foundation investment.
Mm.
And yes, it just so happened that the documentaries were being identified with cable. One, they created an identity with A&E.
Hmm.
Two, they were cheaper than paying for, the Nazi newsreels that would uh, run 24 hours a day. So I just happened to be in place, and I claim, being part of the beginning of the golden age of documentaries. And it was Cold Case Files. I looked on Hulu the other night.
Hmm.
It's running in 3 of the channels on Hulu. I mean,
one one more thing. Pardon me. One more thing before we get out of here. Um, I hear you every week here in Los Angeles on NPR. I didn't realize how long you've been doing Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me. How did that happen? How did you end up as part of that quiz show?
Siegel said, "You know, you've been doing this for 12 years." 12 years, it went so fast. It's a radio show, half hour long. Wait, wait, don't tell me. Peter's the star. And I was retired when I did it. I haven't gotten a lot of criticism because it's so good.
It
People,
it is.
and it's based basically on news. So I'm the straight man. I'm not a stand-up comic like our panelists. But Peter, asked me to fill in for our regular guy who is retiring. And so I did. And he said, we didn't expect you to do it longer than one show. But afterwards, I asked me to do it again. I said, yeah. The first time you hear laughter
Yeah.
and applause, it's like, where have I been
It's
for
intoxicating, isn't it?
50 years? Intoxicating. 50 years, you can't smile. Coming out of a depression area, and suddenly I can laugh.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, it's okay.
I was going to say, is there something you want to do that you haven't?
There's not much that I haven't done. Network correspondent, network anchor, local anchor, and overseas correspondent. Um, I wasn't sitting around saying, "Geez, I'd love to be, in a comedy show." We don't call it comedy; we call it a news quiz. No, I wasn't sitting around waiting for that opportunity.
You're a happy man.
But I'm
Bill
a happy
Kurtis.
guy.
What's that?
I like what I do, and I
Yeah.
like all aspects of it. How happy is that? So you don't have to do these other. I'm always looking for a story. I was looking. I don't want to give it away, but I was reading something about elephants. God, that's a good story. I want to go do that.
I don't know when there's going to be another book, but I would love to do this again with you one more time, whenever you'd love. Uh,
Well, you'll be first because I have the other book written.
oh, well, in that case, really, you want to tease it?
I gave him 800,000. So, and it's pretty, and that is the best part because it's all the documentaries.
Okay. In that case, we will talk again. But right now, the book is Whirlwind, available, I'm going to guess, in Amazon and everywhere else.
Yeah.
Well, that you get your books, and we'll hear you weekly on NPR and Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me. And with you, I'm not going to be surprised. You could pop up anywhere, anytime.
Of course, I'm 85. It's still going.
Then
So,
there's that. Then there's that. But whatever you do, I look forward to talking with you again. I wish you the best of continued success, and thank you for joining us on Upfront. Really appreciate it, though.
you did a good job. It's
Thank
fun.
you. I appreciate it. Bill Kurtis, Whirlwind. Thank you, Bill.